Hello everyone, my name is Patrick Coe and I'm one of the senior buyers in Procurement Services. I handle primarily the IT commodities on campus, which can include software, hardware, equipment financing, IT related services, telecommunications, and also audiovisual. Today I will be going over the new software procurement process, but before I begin, I wanted to take a brief moment to review how software has been purchased in the past and currently. In the past, requesters would submit their orders to their unit or department. At that point, the department would either purchase the software directly or route to Procurement Services / Central Procurement to process. Back in the day, this could easily be a 1 to 2 day turnaround time. The issue we have today is that the majority of the software we purchase are not physical software. Just from a show of hands, how many people here have actually seen or know what a floppy disk is? Probably not many of you. As many of you know, much of the software we purchase today has an element of cloud computing to it. In many situations, the software may have access to UCI's network or collect and store data in the cloud. In order to protect the university, we need to perform additional reviews and vet suppliers in order to help evaluate and mitigate any risks involved with data breaches or misappropriation of our institutional data. For many of you who are wondering why purchasing software takes as long as it does, let's look at our current software procurement process. I've broken this down into 3 sections. The first being the request phase. Typically in the request phase, the end user submits a request to departments, who then submits a KFS requisition or pays via PAL card. Once the requisition gets approved and assigned a PO number, it gets routed back to Procurement Services. During the step, we check our internal records and KFS to see if there are any existing agreements in place or any historical notes related to previous purchases. If there aren't any, we ask the department to fill out the software questionnaire to better help us understand what the software is and what type of data is being shared, and also if the software is accessible. We typically ask this for all software purchase requests simply because we are not the subject matter experts when it comes to each particular software being purchased. The department then goes back to the requester to fill out the questionnaire, and it gets routed back to procurement. As you can see, with all the back and forth between the requester, department, and procurement, this could easily take 1 to 2 weeks. In the review phase, Procurement Services reviews the questionnaire and then routes it to OIT and accessibility for review. Or if that's not needed, we issue a purchase order. During the security review, OIT will typically ask for additional documentation from the supplier to assist in performing the review and also assist with drafting the Appendix data security with the department. The department then sends the UC contract templates and appendices for the supplier to review. Once the request documents have been returned, OIT then completes their review, and the contracts team reviews any edits and negotiates contracts language with the supplier. This step can easily take 2 to 6 weeks, since these steps are done one right after the other. Once the agreement is finalized, the contract is routed for signatures via DocuSign. Once completed, the PO is issued or paid via PAL card. The purchase process still only takes 1 or 2 days. Before I go into the new software procurement process, I wanted to discuss at a high level a few of the roles most of you may not be familiar with in this new process. First, we have the requester, and this person is typically a faculty member, researcher, student worker, staff member, or possibly another workforce member. The requester should be able to understand use cases and confirm that the requested software application meets their business requirements. They should also be able to identify the protection and availability levels of institutional information that will be stored, accessed, or transmitted through the software solution. Second, we have the unit procurement point of contact. This individual is considered the subject matter expert in the software procurement process for their unit. This role will assist the requester and in the execution of their responsibilities. This role is typically the departmental buyer or the individual that interacts directly with OIT and procurement services on their request. Third, we have what we call the Unit Information Security Lead, or short USIL. Each unit, both administrative and academic, have two USILs in their area. If you don't know who your USILs are, they're available on the OIT security website. These individuals are accountable for information security within their units and for holding third-party suppliers accountable for protecting institutional information and information resources. The USIL serves as a primary unit subject matter expert for information security questions, including those related to software procurement and post-procurement security and governance. They also serve as the main point of contact with the Chief Information Security Officer. Fourth, we have the OIT Security Risk and Compliance Team that conducts the supplier security risk reviews and negotiates the Appendix data security with the supplier. Many of you may be unfamiliar with this group. The IT security team is separated between main campus and UCI Health. In one of the upcoming slides, we will go over which team you will need to engage with your requests. Fifth, we have Procurement Services, who establishes procurement and purchasing practices and strategically vets and negotiates contracts for goods and services, including software purchases. For those of you who do not know who in procurement handles software requests, you can see them on the screen. But for the most part, generally, if you have any questions, I am typically the point of contact in procurement. Not covered in these slides are also additional stakeholders that may have a role in this process. Since this is a high-level overview, you can learn more about these roles and responsibilities on the procurement website. Now on to the new software procurement process. As all of you can see, in comparison between the old process and the new process, the lead time is significantly reduced, and that is one of our hopes. Also, our attempt is to streamline the process, be in compliance with IS3, and also provide better visibility for departments. In theory, what originally took 3 to 8 weeks can be further delayed to 1 day to 4 weeks, depending on the particular software. In the request phase, the requester completes the new software procurement questionnaire and submits it to the unit procurement point of contact for review. This questionnaire may be familiar to some of you, as we've been using this for the past few months. Also in the past, there have been other iterations of this document. We ask that you fill this form out completely and accurately. If the requesters need assistance, they can reach out to the unit procurement point of contact. Please keep in mind this document is static and is subject to change. If you have any suggestions or feedback, we would love to get your input. Within this document, we ask that the requester provide the name of the software, their website link, and the main use of the software. We also ask that you identify whether the software is installed locally, in the cloud, or both. The next question asks that you identify if this purchase is new or if it is a renewal. This will help in later steps. In the body of the questionnaire, you'll be asked a series of questions related to whether or not the supplier has access to the UCI network, if PCI is involved, whether or not the misuse of the software could potentially harm life or property, and also if the software is used to collect, store, access, or transmit any sensitive data. If it does, we ask that you check the appropriate radio buttons and provide additional details in the notes sections to describe what that data is. At the bottom of the form, we also have 3 accessibility questions that will also need to be answered. And depending on how it's answered, it may or may not trigger an accessibility review. This form, for those who have not seen it, can be located on the procurement website under the procurement tab and under buying goods. Please be sure to fill out the questionnaire completely and accurately. Filling out the form incorrectly could potentially route it through the wrong process and delay your purchase. In the next step, the software procurement questionnaire is reviewed by the unit procurement point of contact. If the renewal box is checked, the unit procurement point of contact verifies if there are any existing agreements or if an agreement was not needed in prior years. Currently, we do not have a full inventory list of existing agreements, but we hope to have this later this year. In coordination with the Unit Information Security Lead, the Unit Procurement Point of Contact determines if the purchase requires a contract with any appendices, namely data security, GDPR, or BAA, and also if a further review is needed by the OIT security team. If the data is determined to be P1 or P2, the USL will make this determination. The purchasing agreement template, along with appendices, can be found on the procurement website under the Contracts tab. In situations where no further review is needed and the purchase is low risk and low dollar, the purchase can be made via PO or PAL card. Please keep in mind that just because a piece of software is low dollar, this does not mean it is also low risk. Moving forward, the unit procurement point of contact and requester will need to complete the Appendix DS Exhibit 1. Based on the protection level, this will determine the level of cybersecurity insurance the supplier is required to carry. In addition, the data elements selected in Section 2 will determine if any of the other appendices, such as GDPR or BAA, will be required. Next, the unit procurement point of contact sends draft copies of the UCI purchasing agreement template, UC terms and conditions, and any applicable appendices to the supplier for review. In addition, they will need the supplier to provide their information security plan or policy, along with a third-party security review, such as a SOC Type 2 report and a HECVAT self-assessment. The HECVAT is a vendor assessment tool that was created by the Higher Education Information Security Council and is widely used across the nation. Once those documents have been reviewed and returned, the unit procurement point of contact will forward the revised and redline contract documents to Procurement Services for review. If this is going to be paid via PO, we ask that departments submit a requisition in KFS. In addition to the step, the unit procurement point of contact forwards the software procurement questionnaire and also the supplier security documents to OIT, their security team, for review. If there is any HIPAA data involved, it will need to be routed through the UCI Health team for review. If it doesn't contain HIPAA, this will need to be routed through the main campus team. In order to begin the review process by OIT, requests will need to be submitted to one of these email addresses. On the main campus side, a ServiceNow ticket will be created when you submit your request via email to securityreviews@uci.edu. In addition, depending on the software, there may be additional review by privacy, accessibility, or PCI. Likewise, the UCI Health side also has a team that will perform similar reviews. During the review process, there may be exceptions to any of these reviews. This triggers the exception process and related escalations. There is a defined escalation process for various types of exceptions based on the nature of the issue. This process ultimately involves identifying the appropriate party who is willing and able to accept the risk. This is usually a unit head or a vice chancellor. If there are no exceptions or the exceptions have been resolved, the software procurement process continues. While the security review process is ongoing, the Procurement Services team will review and negotiate any red lines or changes to the contract language in parallel. By running these two steps in parallel, we're able to reduce the lead time in this phase. This step can vary in time depending on the complexity of the software and the agreement. Much of the time is spent waiting for suppliers' legal team to review and make edits to the agreements, or many times we're waiting on the vendor to provide the additional documentation needed by OIT. In addition, other departments may need to get involved in the process, such as privacy, risk management, or even campus council. Once the security review and contracts negotiations have concluded, the contracts team will finalize the agreement and route for signatures via DocuSign. Once the agreement is fully executed, we can issue the purchase order or pay via PAL card. At the end of this process, the software will be added to the university's inventory so that others can see what software agreements we have in place. We hope to have this available later. In closing, I wanted to provide 3 best practices for the requesters and the unit procurement points of contact. For the requester, number 1, we ask that you please submit your request as early as possible. Depending on the complexity of your request and available resources, this may take additional time to review. Number 2, we ask that you please consult with your unit procurement point of contact first with your request, and also be sure to fill out the software procurement questionnaire completely and accurately, as this could delay the process if filled out incorrectly. Number 3, this is very important. We ask that you never sign any supplier terms and conditions or agreements on behalf of the university. This also includes any click-through agreements. Most people on campus do not have the authority to sign agreements, and they may be agreeing to unfavorable terms and conditions on behalf of the university. If any signatures are required by the department, Procurement Services will route the documents via DocuSign. For the unit procurement point of contact, number 1, we ask that you check for existing agreements. Time and effort can be reduced if an existing agreement is already in place with the supplier, either locally or at the system-wide level. We hope to provide this later this year, but in case there's one you cannot locate, you can always contact Procurement Services. We also ask that you verify that this purchase is in compliance with BUS 43 and the Public Contract Code. For more information on this, you can always visit the procurement website. Number 2, we ask that you assist and verify that the software procurement questionnaire is filled out accurately and completely. If this is filled out incorrectly, it could route through the incorrect workflow. And third, lastly, please allow sufficient time for the software review. There are certain times when OIT and Procurement Services are inundated with software requests, and this is usually during fiscal year end. In these times, I would recommend submitting your request as early as possible. Unless we are notified that the request is urgent, priority is typically given to requisitions submitted before the year-end cutoff date. This concludes my overview of the software review process. Thank you.